Got my little flags ready to go today, Kerri. I'm pumped for today. Really excited. I can't believe we have these two legends joining us in the Cuppa of Life Cafe. I know you're going to introduce them very, very soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cuppa of Life Cafe. If this is your first time, take a virtual seat. We'll be around with our menu shortly. Hello, Amanda. Hello, Tanya. I'm doing my romper room. Hey, Megan. Hey, Felicity. Hey, Philip. Hey, Narissa. Like what we do every single day, I'd love to make you all aware that we are doing this obviously free of charge, and all the talent that are coming in to tell their athlete story during the games that should have been right now. But obviously with COVID, and it's, you know, tough times out there at the moment, Kerri, isn't it?
It certainly is. It certainly is. And we are so grateful to be here tonight.
So, and the internet as well. Telstra had problems today, but Ron, it's all right. We are raising funds for the Australian Sports Foundation, so please make sure that you click on the offers area and any donation will count. 70,000 clubs are in need of financial support. It's about $1.2 billion, and 16,000 of those clubs are in trouble of closing within the next sort of 6 months if we don't help to make a difference. Next thing is, make sure you be nice, be kind, be interactive, ask plenty of questions. You guys have been awesome so far. The questions that are coming out are absolutely brilliant, so please make sure you put them into the chat room. And finally, please make sure you share across our social channels and tag Grant, Hackett and Leisel Jones today as well. Please make sure you do that. Also, Kerri, I'm going to hand it over to you to do your little thing.
Thank you, Cookie. And it's not a little thing. It's such a big thing. We are so pumped for tonight. We are so pumped. The Olympics would have been on, as we all know, in Tokyo right now. It would have been day 9, and it would have been the last day of the swimming. And the medals would have been given out today for the men's 1,500-metre freestyle. So it's fitting that tonight we have 2 swimmers, not one, but 2 swimmers, absolute legends. We obviously have Grant Hackett and one of the most winningest swimmers in the Olympic Games, Leisel Jones. If you guys can turn on your mics and cameras so we can say hi.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Great to see you. I know Melbourne, Grant, you're in Melbourne, Leisel's in Brisbane, I'm in Sydney. We're coming in from all over the place, and of course all our great viewers are coming in from all over Australia and the world as well. Hey, I just want to ask you guys first off, right now, if the pandemic hadn't hit, we would have been in Tokyo home watching the Olympics. Grant, first of all, to you, would you have been over there, or would you have been back here sitting on the lounge with your family, your newborn?
Probably most likely doing a little bit of work here. I think I was set up to do back in Oz. So, yeah, it would have been nice to be up in Tokyo and watching the Olympic Games. But, yeah, unfortunately, we all find ourselves in this very bizarre situation that no one would have foreseen coming into this year. And you feel for the athletes, you feel for everybody, full stop. But the fact that they've done 4 years of hard work, and I couldn't imagine, coming into an Olympic year with so much uncertainty and having to manage through this. But hopefully in a year's time, there'll be another opportunity, and I'll just make that moment so much greater if they get it.
Yeah, fantastic. And what about you, Leisel? Would you have been over there or cuddled up somewhere on a couch watching?
I probably would have been here. So I sometimes do a little bit of work with Channel 7, but I would usually be based at home. So I had some work to do with Sunrise and would have been doing a bit of panel stuff there, hopefully. But hopefully next year it'll all still go ahead. But, yeah, I usually stay in Australia unless I get a job over there, which is very rare. So, yeah, I did all the Rio stuff from here as well. And it was, Tokyo would have been amazing this year because the time difference would have been almost the same, so it wouldn't have been so hard for us back at home. But yeah, hopefully next year it all goes well.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to next year. And we had Shani Williams and Ellia Green, rugby sevens gold medalists, who are training right now. They've got another 12 months and they're keeping really positive and they're training really hard for next year as well. So Grant, I want to start with you. I just want to give you a little bit, or give our viewers a little bit of an introduction to your background in sport. So you were obviously regarded as one of the greatest distance swimmers in history. 2 golds in your first games, Sydney 1,500 metre free and 4x200 metre free. Then back-to-back you went in Athens in the 1,500, 2 silvers in the 400 free and the 2x200 free. And then your third Olympics, Beijing, the medals still kept coming, silver in the 1,500 and bronze in the 4x2. I'm exhausted. Yes, Cookie. What an incredible record over 3 Olympics. This is a common question. You might get this, frequently, but I want to know, Which one was your favourite? Do you have a favourite and why?
I have to say Sydney was definitely my favourite because it was my first Olympic Games, and to have that opportunity, like yourself, to win in front of your home country. I mean, you probably get to go to an Olympics maybe once if you're lucky as an athlete, but to go to one that's in your home country and to win a gold medal, and not only that, I was racing against a guy who was my childhood hero, Kerri Pottharst. I had this guy up on my wall all of his times every year that I was trying to, either emulate or beat. And then finally, I'm literally the lane beside him. He's the world record holder. He's won the last 2 Olympic Games. So to have that opportunity to compete in front of my home country, win my first individual gold medal, and go up against my childhood hero, it's hard to get an ingredient that's much better than that one.
Yeah, spot on. And we're going to talk a little bit about Kieran later. He's definitely had an influence, not only on you, but actually on Natalie and I as well. When he won in Atlanta, it really inspired us to come out the next day and win bronze. And that's the beauty of having these Olympic friends in the village and following their journeys. We all inspire each other. But it wasn't just the Olympics. You're actually obviously multiple medals on the World Championship field as well. So 17 gold, 6 silver, another 4 bronze. When you look back at your career and all the achievements that you had, how does that make you feel on the inside?
This will sound really weird, but I actually look back and think of the silvers and the bronzes. Yeah, I'm that hard on myself, and I still am to this day. And I think that's what allowed me to keep going for so long. I didn't lose the 1500 for 11 years at any level, at Commonwealth, World or Olympic, but I often look back when you were going through it's a bit somber, I know, but when you were going through my medal record there, I was thinking, oh, that silver in Athens behind Thorpe, 0.1 of a second. Damn it, in Beijing, that silver in the 1500 and the first person to get 3 in a row. And it's really weird. It's just my mindset. Like, I'm very proud of what I've done. And, I got to share so many moments with all of my teammates. And, it was a very long career. But, yeah, I often think about what could have I done actually better in those situations where I didn't come out on top. And I kind of challenge myself today because I believe just any level of success is all that mindset and that process of discipline around your preparation and your execution. So, yeah, that's actually what comes to the surface first.
Does it come to the surface with a kind of, I want to find a way to get better thing, or does it drag you down those?
No, it's more how to get better.
Yeah.
It doesn't drag me down. I often think, it'd be great to be able to change those moments, but you've obviously got to put those ones to bed, and they're a long time ago. But I often think, what did I actually do wrong in those situations where, if I'm trying to perform well today, what could I actually do better in terms of what did I learn from that all the time? So, yeah, it's quite incredible. I often think about that one in Beijing where I finished second, and I actually changed my race strategy. I had a race strategy for 12 years where I just go out hard, establish a lead, and sort of hold on to that, and I would normally win. And I won every time I did that. So, and then I decided just to sit with the field and then try and bring it home at the end, and I didn't see someone out in lane 7. So I was like, after all that time and all that experience, you can still make mistakes. So, yeah, I think just sticking to what you know and could have executed that a lot better and probably got a different result. But it is what it is, and you've got to take the lessons from it.
Yeah, it's like trusting your own gut, I guess, or trusting your plan, trusting yourself through that, and not making that change. You grew up on the Gold Coast, where many swimmers, Brisbane or the Gold Coast, begin. So obviously it's in the water up there, literally. You started swimming at the age of 4, which is pretty incredible. When did the dream kind of cement itself in your mind that one day you would want to and become an Olympian and a gold medalist?
It was when I was 13 when Sydney got the Olympic Games. So when Juan Antonio Samaranch read that out, and I was doing 3 sports quite competitively. I was doing surf lifesaving because I loved the Uncle Toby Super Series because my brother was doing that with the these big rock stars like Trevor Hendy and Guy Leach, etc. So I was really wanting to do that sport. Then I was playing rugby league, and I played that for 7 years. And then I was doing swimming, and I was quite good at all of them. And I ended up pursuing swimming because in '93 they got the Olympics, and just watching how good our team started to go, leading through, Kieran Perkins, Susie O'Neill, Samantha Riley. And I just fell in love with the 1500 metre freestyle because of that history that we had, going back to Andrew Boyd Charlton, John Conrads, Murray Rose, Stephen Holland, Glenn Hausman, Daniel Kowalski. So all of these people that I just really admired in this race that I learned was our most gold medal Olympic event. And so I really wanted to pursue that. So from then on, I just set the goals, and I didn't, when I was 13, I didn't just have the desire to go to the Olympics. I really wanted to win.
Yeah, I think having that Olympics in your hometown really does create those dreams for a lot of kids. And hopefully, you know, if we get the Olympics in 2032, that'll happen again. Now, Leisel, did we just lose you, or are you having a bite to eat?
No, I'm not having a bite to eat. Just my signal's gone.
Oh, no. I will read out your little bit of history as well. And maybe, I'm wondering if it's worth logging out and logging back in.
Okay, I'll log out. I'll come back.
Okay. Well, while Liesel's gone, we'll continue on with you, Grant. I know I read today that you actually wrote down your goals really early, and we talk a lot about writing your goals down and not just having them in your head, because, you know, sometimes that's just a dream, not really a goal. And you had them on your walls, and you studied Kieran Perkins to the nth degree. Like, you really had a look at what he was doing to get as good as he could. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I was 13 and I decided to go to the Olympics and wanted to win, that was actually my goal. I thought, well, what do I need to do in terms of that preparation? So I actually researched all of Kieran's time. So I looked at what he did as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16, 17, and then you're in the open category for every single race too, not just the 1500, but the 200, the 400, the 800-meter freestyle. So I just really pursued that. And then I just knew this guy's splits back to front. Like, I could literally quote every single turn for the 1500-meter freestyle world record, because I think you have to become obsessed with it to that extent to actually do it one day. And it just becomes, second nature. People ask, how did you hold, sub 1 minute for a 1500? And the easiest way to answer that is say, if you set your alarm clock at 6 o'clock every morning and then you forget to set it one day, you'll still wake up at 6 o'clock. When you train something day in, day out, you just get used to the pacing of it, and eventually it all comes together.
Well, what time did you used to get up in the heat of practice?
4:45 I used to get up, but I know for a fact that Leisel, particularly at the start of her career, used to get up earlier than that. She used to get up at like 4 or something ridiculous with her coach, so with Ken. So hers was more brutal than mine, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, us girls, I guess we have to get ready for the pool a little bit earlier. Now, Leisel, welcome back.
Thank you.
Leisel, you were considered as one of the greatest, and you are one of the greatest breaststroke swimmers of all time, equaling Thorpe, obviously, in the medals in the Olympics. You started representing Australia at just 14 years of age. You were the first swimmer to reach 4 Olympics: Sydney, Athens, Beijing, London, 3 gold, 4 silvers, 1 bronze. And then in the World Champs, another 7 gold, 5 silvers, 4 bronze, Com Games medals coming out of your swim bag. Which one was your hardest fought medal, do you think?
Probably Beijing in the 100 breaststroke, I'd say, was probably my hardest fought, only because mentally it was so hard to prepare for that one, because I had already been to 2 Olympic Games before that. I hadn't won an individual gold medal yet. I'd won relay gold medals, but that elusive gold medal was so hard to get. So for me to step up behind the blocks, it was really mentally challenging. And it took so much courage in the way that you had to think about that. You had done all the work to do it. You had to trust the process, like Hackie said before, about your race plan and sticking to your race plan and knowing that you could execute it properly. So that was probably the hardest fought one. And it's funny because it wasn't really even in the pool. It was actually a really easy win, and probably one of the easiest races I've ever done. But it was mentally just behind the blocks, just stepping up and going, I know how to do this. I'm worthy of this. I deserve to win this. And so, yeah, that was by far the hardest one medal.
Were they some of the things that you used to say to yourself, maybe in the do you call it the tunnel, or in the the waiting area before you go out onto the deck? Were these words going around in your head?
Well, they went in my head for a very long time. So we have a marshalling area where we all line up, and that's where we go out. And that's a lot of, I guess, mental talk. There's a lot going on there. You're very nervous. But it's really a lot of the time in the lead up before the games. It's almost, 6 months out where you're sort of going, okay, pressure's on. We're really feeling it now. And you really start thinking about the race, and it really hits you that you're about to do this race. So and that final time before you go out is really the time that you just put it all together, and you just have faith that if all the work that you've done is going to come together. So I do think, it's probably 6 months out. That's the worst time that you're really fighting with your head and working through it. But before the race, I always used to have this saying that was, this is your office, you know what to do. And my office was 2 meters wide, 50 meters long, and it was filled with water. So that was the time that I could control this area, and that was what I needed to do. I just needed to step in my office and get the job done, and that was a mantra that I just kept saying all the time, and it really worked for me. So that kind of kept me really calm and gave me that confidence that I knew what I was doing, because this was my 9-to-5 job. This is what I did every day. So it was step in, get the job done, and you know how to do that.
And your job started very, very early, a lot earlier than most people working these days. You're going to the office. How did you actually get into swimming, and when did your dream to become an Olympian start?
Well, I was very much, I really wanted to be an Olympian from the, oh geez, look at that picture. So little.
How old are you there?
That would be 14. So that was training with Ken. So that's at the Redcliffe Pool. I probably just made Olympic team maybe. So I would have been just 14. So it's really funny just seeing all those pictures, just really a little kid, like just competing at the Olympic Games, which I just think is insane. And I see some 14-year-olds now and I think, I don't know if they would be able to step up behind the blocks at the Olympic Games and compete. But as a child, I loved swimming. Like Hacky, we just watched sport on TV, just loved it. Loved watching swimmers, had my idols. Samantha Riley was my idol. She was breaststroke queen at that time. Penny Haynes was the other one. And when you have to race your idols, like racing against Kieran Perkins, I imagine it's the same thing. It's like, oh, wow, this is insane. I've been watching these people on the TV my entire life, and now I have to race against them. So, and unfortunately, I beat Samantha Riley at the trials, and she didn't make the Olympic team because of me. So I felt really bad. So as a 14-year-old, I felt really awful that my idol didn't go to the Olympic Games and it was my fault. So, it was pretty funny. But yeah, growing up, I just loved sport and I loved being active and I loved being outside, and the pool was where my friends were after school. I just adored it. So yeah, it was really just natural for me. I just absolutely loved swimming.
Yeah, you were born into it. Now, let's talk about that 14-year-old in Sydney, because, I mean, I know what it was like walking out onto the sand, Bondi Beach, 10,000 people screaming. Every time you win a point, it's like so loud. And then every time you lose a point, it's like, oh, everyone feels sorry for you. And that's just as loud. So as a 14-year-old, and I have a son now who's 14, and I can't imagine him walking out onto the deck of a swimming pool in front of, I don't know if you had a similar size crowd in Sydney, but the noise and everything. How on earth did you cope with that?
Funny enough, I think I was probably just really naive. I just had no idea what to expect. And I think that was probably the greatest thing. I think if I had known what was coming, I think it would have been awful. So I think it was just great that I was able to just take it in for what it is and just take one step at a time. And my coach, Ken Wood, was really good at just one step at a time. We're just going to do the heat and see how we go. And we're just going to do the semi and see how we go. And we'll do the final. So it was really good. And breaststrokers tend to be quite young. I don't know what it is, but Megan Kwan, or Megan Gendrick, as she is now, she was only 16 when she won the gold in the 100 breaststroke. So there's quite a few young people around, which was good. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I think you went with the flow and you just tried not to get overwhelmed with what was going on around you, not to get caught up in it.
How did you do that as a 14-year-old?
Well, I think it was pretty good when you had older people around you. And I mean, Hacky wasn't that much older then either, still so young. So you just sort of depended on the older people on the team to show you the ropes and just to keep a level head and try to do the things that you normally did when you're at home. So try to keep your routine really simple. And mine was probably like a 14-year-old girl's thing. I just read books and did a bit of schoolwork and whatnot. But just try not to get caught up into it. Just really try and stay really calm and, just sort of go with the flow. But it certainly can be extremely overwhelming.
And did your friends back then, were they pretty excited, when you came back to school, because you were still in school, right, after Sydney, and you had a couple of silver medals?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I was in year 10, and I came back to school and it was just so bizarre. It just didn't feel like life was going to be normal ever again. And I had helicopters come to my school, land on the school oval and to do interviews. And, it just a lot of things like a current affair would come to school and do like a day in the life of. And it's very hard to be cool at school when that sort of stuff is following you around. So don't try and fit in with anyone because it just doesn't happen. So it's a pretty bizarre life, but I wouldn't exchange it for anything. It was so much fun. I absolutely loved it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think, to be honest, I'm pretty lucky that I started so early because I could get 4 Olympics in and I was still 27 when I retired.
Yeah, that's actually when I started playing beach volleyball. Hey, Hackey, you said before that you dominated the 1500 metre for 10 years, like you held the world record. What motivated you, and both of you can answer this question as well, to just get up that early every single day? I know you enjoyed it and you were succeeding, but was there something else that was motivating you every day to just follow that black line?
It was just always about getting better for me. Every time I raced, I just wanted to see what I could do. And I had so much unbelievable competition down the line. Like when I go down to my lower races, I had Ian Thorpe. So it was funny. We spent probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years there. Every time we'd race, we'd almost break a world record or we'd break it together. And I'd finish second a lot of the time to him because he'd break that world record by a little bit further. So every time I go back, I always had some other goal or something else to train for. And it was one thing to kind of win one off or, win a couple of gold medals back to back. But I think longevity of athlete is something that I probably took a lot more pride in. So to try and get that consistency and performance and improve all the time and always just be setting that bar that little bit higher, I think it was just something I enjoyed. And I enjoyed the sport. I enjoyed the people in the sport. I think to Leisel's point before, just around, going to the pool and having your friends there, getting on the team and having your friends there. And I know I remember Leisel's race like it was yesterday in Sydney. I couldn't believe it. I remember standing on the pool deck, I had my hands up like this. I was like, oh my God, it's like 0.05. Like I remember it like yesterday. It was 0.05 of a second she nearly won by, and she was just turned 15. I was like, it was mind-blowing. And those sort of performances inspire you all the time. So, and I was lucky to be part of an era that had so many great people that just kept lifting you up time in, time out again.
And I think that's the thing too. It's not hard to be motivated when you're surrounded by amazing people. And we really were part of the golden era of swimming. We were so fortunate to have some of the best people that have ever competed in swimming in this country. And we were all on the team together. So it's not hard to be motivated and to show up every day when you've got mates that are by your side who get up there with you, and you all turn up to the pool. We had to be at the pool at 4:30, so in the morning. And it's not hard to do that when you've got great people alongside you and your teammates. You genuinely love your teammates. Like they've got your back. They're always there for you. So it's really not hard to stay motivated in those sort of situations.
Grant, I'm curious, in Sydney, you're up against Kieran Perkins, who's won the last 2 Olympics. You're actually sitting next to him, and you're in the same, obviously you're swimming next to each other in the pool, right? Lane,
yeah. And lane 3 and 4, yeah.
Yeah, and you're sitting next to him when you're getting introduced. I'm just wondering what's going through your mind at that point, because you talk about, good mates, you train together, you know each other so well. Are you thinking about beating him, or are you thinking about yourself only?
I spent 4 years thinking about beating him. So it was a really difficult situation for me because, like Leisel said, we were just young kids, Sydney. That was both our first Olympic Games. I'd spent 4 years on the team prior to that, unlike Leisel, so I had a bit more experience under my belt. But the thing with Kieran was he was just such a strong competitor mentally. So, he got inside people's head all the time. He's a little bit like the Iceman. Nothing seems to faze him, whether he's going good or bad. You just never know how he's feeling. So that can be a little bit destabilizing if you're one of his competitors. But the thing that really worried me most was at the Olympic trials, because he didn't have the best 4 years leading up to Sydney, and he swam incredibly well when he got to the Sydney Games. And they were all chanting his name at the Olympic trials. And so for me, before I walk out, I thought, oh God, what happens if they're just chanting like Perkins, Perkins, Perkins? And it's like, it's my country too. So I'm from here as well. And so I was actually really worried about that. And then when we went out, they were just doing Aussie, Aussie, Aussie all the time. And that, to me, was probably one of the things that really stood out. But with Kieran, we didn't really talk much over those 4 years. We actually talk a lot more now. Would you believe where we live in Melbourne, we both live either side of the park across from each other. So when we were walking out the park just a few weeks ago, I saw him there, and you saw our little baby Edward and stuff like that. And we actually have a really good relationship now compared to what we had there. But we didn't exchange too many words, except the one thing that he did do, which this just gave me a huge amount of respect to him as a person and a competitor, was when I won that race and he finished second, he leant over the lane rope and he said, "You deserve this," in my ear. And I've never forgotten that. And that's a true mark of a champion, because he wasn't trying to do that in front of anybody else or the cameras. He did that because he was, meaning it 100%.
Amazing. And I was actually going to ask you what he said, because I saw that where he leant over and he whispered something in your ear. That is so cool. So cool. Yeah. So as a young boy as well, you're thrust into the limelight now. Sydney, gold medal. I know what it was like, media everywhere. Obviously, I was a lot older. I was 35 in Sydney. You're a young kid. What happened? How did you deal with that at the time?
It was weird, to be honest. Like I still find it, because you don't go into sport thinking you're going to be a celebrity or going to be that well known. You just go in there because you really want to win and you really like your sport, and you want to go to things like the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games, and you get these great opportunities to compete at such a high level. So I remember going down after the 1500 meter freestyle down to Darling Harbour, and just the impact of the bus arriving. And I was with Ian, because Ian was real close, similar in age. We'd spent a few years again on the team together, been roommates on a few trips. So we knew each other particularly well. So we kind of stick together. And we were always in the marshalling area together over the years, competing in the 200 and 400 meter freestyle. And we stood down on the bus, and there was 100,000 people there just screaming at us. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is crazy.
The Beatles have arrived.
Yeah. Well, but it was like that with Ian anywhere we'd go too. Like if we went up to Japan, we'd go to the World Championships there. They were just like crazy. They would run after him. Like it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. So it was a really interesting time in the sport. And sometimes, to be honest, it was overwhelming, because you just didn't expect it. And you didn't think that your performances would have such an impact on the public at that time.
Leisel, tell us what it's like when you're actually just standing on the blocks and you're about to hit the water, and you know that you'll either win or lose, and win, obviously, gold medal can change your life. What's going on? Are you just all strategy, all process at that point, or does things start to go around in your head and you're like, push them away, go away, I don't want to think about that?
Yeah, it's really funny. We used to have a thing when I worked with Rowan Taylor towards the end of 2008. So I only worked with Rowan for about 18 months before the Olympic Games, which was a really risky move. But we really worked hard on doing one thing at a time. So previous Olympic Games, I would be really overwhelmed with, having to do 100 things. So I would look at a time that I wanted to achieve or a result I wanted to achieve, rather than breaking down the race and looking at the small things I could achieve in that time. So when the gun goes off, it's kind of like, okay, I've got to get the fastest start possible. So it's about being really quick off the blocks. And then it's about getting the first 5 meters. And then it's about doing the pull out. And then it's about the first 2 strokes, and it's about being controlled. Then it's the first 25 and stroke rate. So there's a lot going through your head at the time. But it's all sort of really process driven things. So it's about really controlling the small things. So we really broke it down into, if there's 100 things we need to achieve, let's just do 100 small things really well and tick them off as we go. So I don't know, hacking might be a little bit different, and everyone's probably different, but more so there's a lot going on in your head and there's a lot you've got to think about. But some of the best races you do, it just happens, and it just happens really easy. You don't have to think too much at all. You sort of just let the process happen, and they're some of the best races. But yeah, so my 100 breaststroke, I do remember it was all very much, okay, first 2 strokes, stroke rate, this, pick it up, move here, fast turn. So there's a lot going on.
And over 15 minutes, obviously, you've got a lot longer to think about things.
I do. Unfortunately, a lot more pain to suffer too. No, I was just reflecting on what Leisel said then. It's quite funny, because even in the shorter races, and I used to do 100, 200 meter freestyle sometimes, because you are so process driven and you're so present, it actually goes slow, like the breakout and the movement, even though you're moving really quick and it's all happening. And my process before it, just to clear my head, I was just like, the gun, that's it. So, but yeah, the 1500 was a lot more strategic than probably a lot of the other races. So for me, I really had to make sure I was conscious of my pace, where I was moving ahead, my stroke rate, not falling asleep in certain parts of the race, where if that tempo just comes off a little bit, it could cost you quite dearly, but then making sure you've still got enough to accelerate coming home. But yeah, it was a very different race strategically to anything else that I did in the pool.
Yeah, it's a long time to be focused, 15 minutes to just continually be focused on one thing and not get a break. Look, I want to take you to Athens. I was in Athens. I saw you race in Athens, one of the most inspirational. I think I blubbered, I cried with everybody else. And it was mainly about your reaction, because we didn't really know what was going on with you health-wise, but it was your reaction and just the overwhelming relief in your face at the end of that race. Tell us what was going on in the lead up to that.
Yeah, well, in that particular Olympic year, I just wanted to make sure I did everything right. So, I kind of put my goals up on the wall as I normally do. You got to live them and breathe them every single day. And then in January, I was racing really well at the state titles that we'd always have in Queensland. I went home, got a bit of a sinus infection. I made this promise that I wouldn't miss a session, wouldn't miss anything. My intent I wanted to win 3 gold medals. That was my goal, to be honest. And I got a little bit sick. Then a couple of weeks later, that ended up being pneumonia, because I just kept training through it. And then went to the trials with a chronic chest infection. I was in hospital just a month before the Olympic trials. Went through 17 courses of antibiotics from the trials to the Olympic Games, because I just couldn't get rid of this yellow mucus, to be honest, off my chest. So that race was. People think I'm actually crying at the end of that race, and I'm really emotional, but I'm in so much pain. That's what it is. Like, I'm just struggling. And you can see the picture of me standing up on the blocks. I remember my legs were so fatigued. I remember getting up there, and then I remember to get back down, and I was looking down. I thought to myself, how am I going to get back down? I'm going to fall in the water here. Like, I couldn't actually press down on one quad to walk down. I was in that much pain. But yeah, so that lead up, that preparation was really, really tough. And, the 400, which was about 0.1 or 0.2 of a second behind Ian, the 4x2 freestyle relay, we finished 0.1 behind the US, because, sort of Michael Phelps made such an impact onto that team. And then the 1500, that was just hard fought. And the guy next to me in lane 6, not many people would know, Larson Jensen. He's a multiple Olympic multiple Olympic medalist. He's, got a MBA at like Stanford. And I remember getting an email from him one day too, and it had on the bottom of the email tag, Chief and Commander, SEAL Team 5. So he went and became a Navy SEAL after he finished up swimming. So this guy's psychology was full on around performance and winning and drive. And he broke the American record by about 10 seconds that day. So it was a hard-fought win.
Amazing, incredible, one that we will never forget. And Leisel, you'll never forget your 4th games in London, because sometimes not for the right reasons. I mean, it was, how do you put it? The media really had some things to think about, after what happened to you there. Tell us a little bit about the criticism and how that made you feel.
Yeah, it was pretty challenging, and something I never thought I would ever have to deal with throughout my career. And I've been pretty fortunate throughout my career with a bit of media. I've had some challenging times as well, but learned to deal with them. And they, to be honest, looking back from London, it was actually nothing in Athens. It was not that hard at all. But London was super challenging, and to wake up to see that it was on the front page of the paper that I was too fat for the Olympics, that I was not in the right shape to be there, that maybe I was on a holiday. And I thought, I have never felt anything like that before. And it was quite unbelievable, really. And just to get to the pool, and there was a whole lot of other things that were going on inside the swim team at that time. The team had really changed. The whole dynamic of the team had changed. There was a very much a lack of respect throughout the whole entire team, and it just had a huge culture shift within. And so we were dealing with that, and having been on such a great team like Sydney 2000, where we were just whether you liked someone or you didn't like someone, it really didn't matter. You had their backs and you worked together as a team. So that was really challenging to deal with a very different dynamic. And I had seen it when it was so wonderful and so successful, and to see it to change something that I loved so much was really disappointing. So to deal with this media stuff on top of it was really super challenging, and it felt really personal because it was about me. It wasn't about my performances. It wasn't about anything else. It really was a huge challenge. It was a personal attack on how I looked. And look, to be honest, I certainly was not in the form or the physical appearance that I looked in 2008 because I wasn't doing the same things. I wasn't eating a soup diet. I wasn't doing any of that stuff, which was super extreme that I had to do to get to that level. So, and I just really wasn't prepared to do it. And I was dealing with, depression 18 months before that. I was on antidepressants, which made me put on weight. So there was so much other stuff that was going on behind the scenes that I was dealing with. So it was really hard to sort of get through that and to face it. But I think it's made me a really, I guess, a lot thicker skin, but I have so much compassion for other people and other athletes that it's certainly a big thing now, particularly with social media. It's just huge, just all that body image stuff. So, yeah, I've got a heap of compassion for other people that are dealing with it. And, yeah, it's probably given me a lot more empathy for other people.
Yeah, well, the bad times do teach us lessons, and you really handled that with such integrity back in London. Remember, you were really composed and you still performed well, and, you outperformed other swimmers that were maybe stick thin or that, would have been, Instagram models or whatever, but it's not about that, and it should never have been about that. And I think the media really overstepped the line there.
Yeah, it's really funny. And if you look at bodies in swimming, people are completely different. If you compare Libby Trickett and myself, we are two completely different people, yet we're multiple world record holders, multiple Olympic medalists, and you couldn't get two more different people physically than Libby and myself. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that you just can't compare. It physically doesn't matter. Most of the time it's actually mental.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have to even explain it or justify it either.
Yeah.
Let's talk about transitioning into life after sport. Now, Grant, going from the pool to a suit, going into commentating and news reading, were you excited when you retired?
I was, because I didn't have to swim 16 kilometres every single day for 49 weeks of the year. So that was the first part of the excitement. Look, it was exciting to go into a new chapter of life. I think for me, I started out in finance and media and loved both of them for totally different reasons. I think the media side was really around, I think, the spike of the adrenaline of jumping on TV live and, sort of chatting with people or, just talking about sport, things that you love. And then the finance side was something I was always interested in. So I was studying, commerce law when I was swimming. I did my MBA post-swimming. So I was always intent on doing other things, but it is a really, really difficult transition post-sport, and it doesn't always hit you straight away. And for me, I think a couple of years later, you realise that your identity has been so strongly aligned to sport. Like, I started swimming when I was 4. So, and then everybody knew me as a swimmer. Everybody in the public knew me as a swimmer. They didn't know me as the person I actually was. So I think transitioning out of that identity crisis, almost you could call it, was probably pretty tough. And the reality is, when I remember started out, I first worked at Westpac for, the better half of a decade. And, you go into Collins Street on a Monday morning after you finish swimming, where you were the global CEO, if you will, of what you did. You were the best in the world for quite some time, to not even being the best at the table. So, and that transition is difficult. And, you've got to eat a little bit of humble pie. You've got to roll up the sleeves. You've got to learn something new again. And I spent the first probably 2, 3, 4 years even of my finance career really thinking about, what did I do when I was 13, 14, 15? Like, what was the hunger, the desire, to overcome all the challenges and all the rejections and all the things that you have to do to become great at something. And, kind of got stuck into that, went through a few personal challenges, a marriage breakdown on the way, which was really tough and really public. So it certainly wasn't easy, but it was nice to finish getting up at 4:45 every single morning. That's the one thing I will never miss.
Now, you obviously, like you said, you had some public struggles, you know, being in the media, in the eye of the public. It's not easy, whatever's going on in life, whether it's good or bad. I don't want to talk about the bad stuff, but what I want to talk about is the mentorship, you know, what's helped lift you out of those dark times and the struggles, the mentorship that you in particular had with Michael Phelps. And how he really kind of took you under his wing, I guess, and really helped you back on your feet.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people that sort of participate in your life when you kind of, you know, on that roller coaster for a period, and everybody goes through it, you know, through the course of some event or some life transition. And, you know, Michael and I have always had a huge amount of respect for each other. We've trained together over the years, and sort of when I went through a rough patch a few years ago, he was one of the first people to call me and he said, come over and live with me for a while. And I was like, I sort of didn't really want to at first. Then I said, okay, what have I got to lose? I think I should get out of Australia for a while. And, you know, I ended up living with him for almost a year. And really, I think that time, it was almost like a form of isolation from Australia, because I was able to get outside that bubble. And really, you know, Michael's been through his ups and downs too. And the fact that we have a similar psychology in terms of our work ethic and the way we approach sport, the way we approached winning, and you just have a real understanding and appreciation for what each other went through. And yeah, he was like a brother to me, and still is. And through that period was very supportive, very helpful. And I think, you know, the one thing I learned about myself, which really you weren't allowed to do as an athlete, and I'm not even sure what Leisel thinks about this, but was vulnerability. I was hopeless at it. So I was going through a really difficult divorce. It was really public. There was so many lies and things that were inconsistent with, you know, what had happened versus what was being reported. And that was so destabilizing. And I couldn't ask for help. Like, I didn't even know how to, because my whole career, and I can look back now and it feels easy to understand all these things. My whole career was, you're sick, push through, you know, find a way to win. You're not feeling good, doesn't matter, you'll overcome it. And you always had these hurdles in front of you, and you always pushed through them. You always found a way to get the outcome you're looking for. In your personal life, it doesn't work like that. You actually have to take stock, stop for 5 minutes, be vulnerable, talk about how you're feeling, and then actually you give yourself a license then to get the tools to help you to move forward, which I never got to that point for so long. And it took me a long, long time to realize those things, and some really good people like Michael around me and support. Because I just didn't know how to do that. I was always like this marathon athlete who could win, you know, all the time and win consistently. And so I thought, oh, that's how people look at me. I shouldn't ask for help. I'm used to helping everyone else. So I was used to being team captain, or, you know, even leading businesses. And it just, yeah, it was a really difficult time. But, you know, you go through those things, and I look back on them now, and, you know, I've just had a baby this year, little Edward. He's 6 months old. And I think I'm a better dad now. I'm a better partner now. I have better mental clarity over who I am and how I react in certain situations. So kind of look back on it and go, hey, there's a lot of good stuff that I pulled out of that I would have never got that growth unless I went through that level of difficulty. Yeah,
I can so relate to the whole vulnerability piece, because, you know, a lot of people still say to me, oh, you're so strong, you're so tough, you know, no matter what's going on. And I'm like, no, on the inside, I'm so soft.
Oh, I'm hanging on by a thread here, very thin thread.
Yeah, help, but don't help. You know, don't help.
Exactly.
What would you say to perhaps a swimmer, young swimmer, or somebody, you know, right now who's in the spotlight, an Australian athlete who's struggling inside, no one knows what's going on? What would be the one piece of advice that you actually would give them?
I would have to say, firstly, you've got to try and sort of be willing to go, okay, there's some things here that I actually need to deal with. And then find good people that you trust that have the skills to be able to deal with it. And that'll start you on your way. And it's just that first conversation. And if you're with the right people, you have the right support around you and the right degree of vulnerability, you will grow and you will get the tools to get through. And the other thing that I would say is there's no silver bullet. Like anything in life, when you get to an outcome that's really pleasing or really fulfilling, it is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of struggle. It's a lot of up and down, whether that's sport, whether that's business, whether that's personal growth. There is no silver bullet. You do not wake up the next day and feel better. It is a slow, progressive, incremental thing. So be willing to do the work.
A bit like right now for everyone, you know. We can't quite see the light at the end of the tunnel of this whole COVID thing, but we've got to have faith that it will happen. And if we need help, we've got to ask. And if we can't find the right person next door, then we go and knock on another door and keep going until we find someone who can.
And one of the big things, Kerri, I think about that is removing the expectation, right? Because I find, living in Melbourne, we go through these lockdowns and all of a sudden we got put into a higher level of restrictions today, level 4. And you've got to remove the expectation that when it's going to be over. Because if you go, in 6 weeks we'll be allowed to do this, or in 2 months we'll be allowed to do this, and then it doesn't happen, you often fall off a cliff and you feel really depressed about it. So you've almost got to go, how am I going to learn to live with this? How am I going to structure my day with intent, with purpose? How am I going to, I love spending more time. I'm normally on a plane at least every second week. So the fact that I get to spend time with little Eddie and have that bonding in his first year of his life is really beautiful. So you got to find the positives, remove the expectation, and get that structure in your life as best you can, and kind of learn to live with a hard situation.
Yeah, beautifully said. We've just lost you again, Leisel. Can you hear us? Leisel, can you hear us? You might want to log back out and log back in again. Internet. Is that Telstra? Telstra had some problems today. I was going to ask Leisel about a similar thing as well, but I'll go on to you, Grant, before Leisel comes back. Look, you've well and truly, turned your life around. Things are going great. You're CEO of your company. You've got a beautiful fiance getting married later this year. Beautiful little Ed. What's next? Is there a book? Is there some mentoring? Is there greater heights in business? What's the next goal?
I think for me, I just love what I'm doing at the moment. For me, it's really, my work gives me a deep sense of purpose. I love what we're doing. We've got a fast-growing business, which is great to be a part of, with a lot of good people. And, just family. I just love my family. I adore Charlene and little Eddie on the screen there. They're just beautiful people and great supporters. So I think for me, work and family is all I want to do right now. And I've been offered to write a book on many, many occasions, because there's a few interesting stories in there, let me tell you. But I don't feel like that journey isn't over for me to write a book yet. So I want to, just keep pushing a little bit harder for a little bit longer. And, life's in a good spot now, and just want to keep pursuing the things that I am.
It's so good to hear. So good to hear. And Leisel, welcome back again.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm hotspotting my phone now because the internet's not working.
That's okay. Leisel, you have been really open about your mental health issues as well. You mentioned before depression and other, anxiety issues. You wrote a book, Body Lengths, and it's humorous, it's brave, it's sometimes controversial, like very direct, very open. How hard was it to tell those stories, and was it a bit cathartic in a way, getting it out?
Yeah, I actually really loved writing this book, and Felicity McLean, who was my ghostwriter in this, I couldn't have done it on my own. There's no way I could have written a book as well as she did. She just did it so beautifully. It was actually the most wonderful experience. I actually loved every bit of doing this, and we used to catch up in Sydney. We used to go to Cronulla, and we used to go and have coffee every couple of weeks, and she would write it and then she would send it back and we would edit as we go. And it was actually a really wonderful experience. But the really funny thing was when I was approached to do the book from Black Ink, and they said, we would love you to write a book. And I said, I don't even have any interesting stories. My life is so boring. Like, it wouldn't even make an interesting book. And they said, you've got to be crazy. This is going to be great. And I said, okay, well, if I am going to write a book, I'm not going to sugarcoat everything. I'm going to make sure it's really raw and honest, and it's a truthful book, because I really wanted everyone to see what the warts and all story is like about getting to an Olympic Games and how hard it is, and that it's not all roses, it's not all wonderful and fairy tales, and it's not, you don't wake up motivated every day. So I just really wanted it to be quite honest about what the story is actually like behind the scenes. So I was really passionate about sharing it. It was more about the mental health side of things was really important for me to be able to share, because it's such a big topic at the moment. There's a lot of people really struggling with mental health, and particularly in COVID right now, it's really challenging and it's really difficult for people because they're feeling really lonely and they're feeling really disconnected. So that for me was really important to be able to share that. And I'm studying psychology now, so I'm in second year psych. It's been good actually. I really enjoyed writing the book. It was really a lot of fun, and I'm really glad it's out there, and I'm really proud of the end result.
Yeah, good on you for being so honest. And I know you stood up at the National Press Club a couple of years ago as well, and you urged the AOC to recognise how sports funding could help Australians at risk of suicide, because you said that due to sport, you didn't take your own life. Now, that's pretty heavy, and I don't want to finish on a heavy note, but obviously that did happen to you. But tell us why it's important for sport to continue to be funded for all those reasons.
Well, that's right. And exactly what I said is just about that sense of community. It's about being a part of something that's bigger than you. And it's funny when you talk to people, and the gym that I go to is a really big community, and it's actually super good for my mental health. Libby Trickett goes there also, so it's good for her mental health. But it's funny about finding that community that's really close to you. And I look forward to my sessions there every time that I get to go. My Saturday morning strength con session is just the highlight of my week. So it's about finding that community, and that's why I really wanted to highlight the importance of sport in our community, because it needs a lot more funding than it does, because it's about that broader sense. And we sometimes look at elite sport and we think about the funding that they get, but it actually dwindles down to our bigger community and broader community. And if you see people that get up and they go swimming as a community, I was just down in Paddington before, and there was this whole group of cyclists there, and this is Sunday evening, and they were having drinks. And I just think that's so good to see that sport throughout our community is so good, and it's so good for our mental health, that we need so much more support, and we could be maybe having less mental health issues if we got people into sport and had that great community feel to it. So yeah, that's why I thought it was really important to get up and say something. And yes, it was a very serious topic, and it was a very serious question. But yeah, I just think it's great to get that good messaging out there on how wonderful sport is for everyone involved.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we've partnered with the Australian Sports Foundation. When I found out, actually, Kim Brennan, a gold medalist in Rio in rowing, sent us an email saying, can you help? Community sport is really suffering with COVID, and that's why we decided to team up with the Australian Sports Foundation and ask for donations throughout this series because of community sport. And Luke will give us the stats of that towards the end, just to ask and for more donations. But right now, we could talk for hours. This is so interesting. Grant, you definitely have 1, 2, 3 books in you, I'm sure, all those amazing stories. We have this segment called the 60-second sprint, where I just throw questions at you. So we're just looking for like one-word answer or a sentence. Who wants to go first?
Oh, Leisel.
Oh.
Yeah. All right.
I'll go.
Okay, are you ready? We've got 60 seconds on the clock. Here we go. Were you ever tempted to make a comeback?
No, definitely not.
What do you think's your superpower?
My superpower is talking too much.
Do you sleep the night before finals?
No, never.
Were you good at visualization?
Yes, very good. I could get my time spot on. Yeah.
Wow. First thing you usually say when you come up for air after a win?
Oh, thank God.
Favorite roommate at the games?
Mel Schlanger.
One word to describe you as a roommate at the games?
Painful.
Did you ever get to march in the opening ceremonies?
Never.
Do you feel ripped off?
No.
Good. Best closing ceremony experience?
Oh, Sydney 2000.
Best part about losing?
The lesson.
Do you still swim?
No.
You don't miss it?
Nope.
And last question, are your medals still in mint condition, or are they all sticky and grubby and worn out?
Sticky and grubby and worn out, and my Sydney 2000 ones are flaking.
Oh, I might have someone who can help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Grant, you ready?
Yep, well done, Leisel.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was the best yet. All right, 50 seconds, here we go. Grant, best part, the thrill of the win or the moment the medal is placed around your neck?
Thrill of the win.
If you didn't go to the games as a swimmer, what sport would you have chosen?
Probably rowing.
Would you say you had more negative voices in your head while you were competing, pushing you to win, or positive?
Probably negative, but they did turn to positive.
Cool. Olympic tattoo?
No.
No tattoo?
No tattoos. No, none.
You're clean skin. Are your medals still in mint condition?
I haven't seen my medals in probably 4 or 5 years because they're at my mum and dad's, but I'm not sure.
Depends how often they take them out.
Yeah.
What's your unique superpower in life, do you think?
I'm probably tough. I can push myself very hard, hence I became a distance athlete.
What's the one single thing that drives you now? I think you answered that before.
Being better.
Oh, okay. I was going to say family, but you know.
Yeah. Definitely. Family values come first. Yeah.
And a couple of things. One thing for each of you. Who's the most famous person you've met?
Probably Donald Trump.
Oh, you must be proud of that.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm proud of it by any means, but he's definitely the most famous person.
Yeah. What about you, Leisel?
Pink. I did Tai Chi with Pink.
Oh my God, how cool. And is there anyone you two would like to meet?
I'd probably like to meet like a Jordan or someone of that ilk. I'd love to. I kind of been past him and seen him, but never really spoken to him. Would be Roger Federer. I really admire him. He's amazing.
Yeah. Anyone you can think of, Leisel?
Probably Drew Barrymore. I reckon she'd be really cool.
You're both very similar.
Yeah.
Okay, Cookie, back in the room. Last thing we're going to do is ask some of the questions. If there's a couple, we've answered a lot of them, I think, just in chatting. But are there any questions from the chat room that stand out?
Yeah, no, there's plenty of questions. But first, I just want to say thank you guys for your vulnerability tonight and talking about mental health and wellbeing. It's one of the reasons why we started Cuppa of Life during COVID, and really do appreciate that chat as well, because it's very important to keep the topic very, very prominent. Jules asks, when do you know it's time to retire? Must be the hardest.
Never.
How do you get to that point? Leisel, I'll ask you.
It's pretty easy. I knew when I didn't want to go training anymore. I knew it was over. I just couldn't push myself anymore. I wasn't really interested in being there, so it was a pretty easy decision.
So good. Grant?
Yeah. I felt like 3 Olympics was enough. I wanted to get into other things in life, and I was like, yep, that's good enough. I've ticked that box. And that was kind of it, to be honest. It was pretty simple. And the training is brutal.
I've got a question here for Shannon. I'm going to direct it to you, Grant. As leaders in the team, what are your best tips for leaders of teams in sport or corporate life?
Look, shared values is really important. So, because that creates a sense of unity, even if you don't have necessarily like people or their personalities, if you've got a shared sort of common purpose and value, that's really important. And I find really successful teams have clear structures, and I call it operating rhythm in business. Like you set things, set goals, set the way you're doing things day to day, and that brings in that strong sense of accountability in a business, keeps everyone, sort of moving in the same direction. But definitely shared values. And I always say, look, if Kobe Bryant, and excuse me, I know he's passed away obviously now, but I was always like, he's such a rock star. If Kobe Bryant, comes to training late and doesn't play on the weekend, guess what? No one will be coming to training late. So you've got to set the standards, and they can't be double standards regardless of how much of a rock star someone is.
Love that. Leisel, I'm going to ask you the question from Caroline. You're both incredibly inspiring and young athletes. You both talk about being motivated by people around you. How did you get motivated once you had retired from competitive swimming?
Motivated to do other things.
Other things, yeah.
I still struggle with that. I've really struggled to find motivation because I feel like I don't love anything as much as I love swimming. I haven't found it quite yet, so I'm trying a few different things. It's a real challenge to find something that you really enjoy, and to find that like-minded people again is really challenging. So I'm still going through it day to day, and I still haven't found my one thing just yet, and I don't know if I ever will.
It's tough.
Not being negative, but it just sort of I just love swimming.
You're going through your next part of the journey, and I'm sure you will. You will. Another question here. It's a long one. I'm trying to read through to where the question is. Okay. No, I'm just going to read it out. I think that idea of it being hard to transition out of something you've dedicated your life to and to find your identity out of that thing you've been aligned to for so long is something that happens with a lot of people in different areas. Do you think there is something that can be done, mentorship, training, etc., that we as a society need to be responsible in providing to help people through those times? Is there something you wish Swimming Australia offered you to help you through that?
I've got some thoughts on that. I'm sure Leisel does as well. Firstly, I think it's up to the individual. I'll be pretty harsh on this one. I think the sports do probably, a fair bit, a lot more than what they used to in terms of helping with that transition and trying to guide you through it. The reality is, and this is going to happen in any sporting team, and this is really harsh, as soon as you're gone, they're on to the next bunch of superstars who are going to go win. And that's just the way it is. And I understand why it's like that. So it really is up to you. And you have to get good people around you, a lot of support around you, and you have to get focused on the next goal for yourself, and you have to understand what that is. And it's a really difficult transition because people go through all sorts of transitions in life. They go through divorces, they go through retirement of their work, they go through, just transitions from one job to the next is very, very difficult. But to go from a transition from when you've been doing it as a 4-year-old into almost like Leisel and I till we were almost 30, and then having to transition because you went through your whole personal growth, all adolescence and becoming an adult through that is really, really difficult. So like I said, there's no magic bullet. And I think that path is different for everyone. That's why there's this no one size fit all. They just need to have the right support in place so you can tap into it at your own will. But it's up to the individual to take that on, recognize that and run with it.
And we've learned, obviously through the experience of both of you yourselves and other athletes, sports and the community these days has learned so many lessons. So you guys are the pioneers in many different areas.
The trouble is, and I'm really passionate about this, is that you can tell, I've told so many athletes and mentored a lot of athletes over time, and you tell them about this transition and what they need to do, and a lot of them just don't do it. It's almost sometimes in life, like you hear certain things, but some things you need to experience for yourself. And unfortunately, this seems to be one of those things that people need to experience.
Yeah, good point.
Such valuable insights there. And I'll be handing to Kerri very shortly, but I just want to make sure that everyone, please make a donation to the Australian Sports Foundation. It's in the office area right now. We're raising funds to support community sport, community clubs that bring people together, that help with mental fitness, but also breed the next blood of athletes to represent Australia. 16,000 clubs could be shutting their doors within the next 6 months. So please do make that donation right now. Over to you, Kerri. Have you got something special for us this afternoon?
Thanks, Cookie. No, I just want to say a massive heartfelt thanks to both of you for giving up your time on a Sunday night for day 9 of the Olympics that would have been. We're all looking forward to next year, and I hope that you guys enjoyed tonight just as much as I'm sure everybody who's been listening tonight has enjoyed as well. Tomorrow night we've got the incredible 7-time Olympian Andrew Hoy and Paralympian Kurt Fernley on, so that's going to be another super inspirational evening. But I just want to leave you with one thing: try to be a rainbow in someone else's cloud.
Oh, Kerri, well done.
Jeez, you're a smooth talker, Kerri.
Yeah. Be a rainbow, Hacky. Be a rainbow.
Please give a wave of gratitude to Grant and Leisel for tonight by putting your thanks into the chat room. We'll see you later, everyone. Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Leisel. See you, Kerri. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Kerri. Thanks, Leisel. See you guys.